Hello, I'm Sherry Sturman, Director of Crayola Education. We're excited to share the Creative Spa with Teachers series with everyone who educates kids. It's a special time and place where you can refresh your creative self and rekindle your creative energy. So will you enjoy today's creative ideas? You'll also get great tips for how to use food experiences with kids to celebrate the holiday season and lessen the stress that comes with it. I'm thrilled to introduce today's guest, cooking therapist Deborah Borden. Deborah, please tell us what being a cooking therapist means and how you weave your experiences as a former school social worker into your work today.
We use cooking and food prep as our medium to sort of explore behaviors, communication styles, and even relationships. I know when I was working as a school social worker, if I ever brought food to the session, everyone was happy. And sometimes happiness made people more comfortable and the kids were willing to share a little bit more.
I love your comment from when you were a school social worker and how food brought so much joy and helped to open kids up. That's beautiful. So let's talk about the mindset that some people bring to the sessions when you're working with them. You mentioned that sometimes people are hesitant about cooking, or they'll say, I'm not a great cook. How do you help people shift that hesitancy mindset so they embrace the power of foods to comfort, restore, and connect us?
I can't tell you how many times working with a client or a couple, or even speaking to various groups and organizations, somebody right away will say, well, I hate to cook and the wrapping is still on my oven. This is never going to work for me. You don't have to be Bobby Flay or even enjoy cooking to experience a wonderful, even aha moment from a cooking therapy session.
I love the 3 M's that you encourage people to focus on: mindfulness, metaphor, and mastery. Please explain those 3 pillars.
So when I initially started working with adolescents and families, I teased out the 3 most powerful things that I saw that were happening. And the first was mindfulness. Families were present. The cell phones were shut off. They were taking quiet moments. Clients were able to take something that was happening in the cooking process and examine their own life experiences. Some of the examples would be stir until thickened, which requires a great amount of patience. If you've ever made pudding, you're like waiting forever, or like watching water boil. So we would stop and talk for a minute about, what is that like for you in your life? Is that, a challenge for you? It might be something like bring to a simmer, not a boil. My own personal experiences, I can be very reactive, and doing even a little intervention, remembering when I was just letting something bubble rather than letting it bubble over, how helpful that can be. When you're finished with a cooking therapy session, even though you may not always have a fabulous result, we've had these tangible processes. We stirred this in, we watched this happen, and usually we have a success. And that's powerful mastery. If I could script a success into my clients' lives daily or more than once a day, I'd be thrilled. But even if it doesn't come out exactly the way you plan, that's a great metaphor for life right there, because what comes out perfectly? And often we can reframe something that might initially feel like a failure. My example that I always use is, if the bread didn't rise, maybe you had some breadcrumbs.
Thinking about mastery and how intimidating that can sound, especially for people who are new to it, how do you help people get a sense of mastery even when their cooking experiences don't come out the way they expected? I loved your point about, if a bread doesn't rise, it's still good for maybe croutons or breadcrumbs. But how do you help people, not feel intimidated by this 3 M?
One of the nice things about the mastery of a cooking therapy session is 9 times out of 10, you'll have dinner or a side dish or a dessert. And very quickly, clients get excited about having an actual thing that they can, touch and feel and show. Remember, here's this thing I made, even if it's imperfect. It's something you didn't have an hour ago.
I loved when we had a conversation about cooking and metaphors. Ingredients came up. Ingredients are something that you encourage people to focus on when they're cooking for themselves and with children. And you say that picking out ingredients can be a mindful practice, that foods are metaphors for how we feel or what we're thinking about when we're cooking. Please share some food metaphors with our viewers. For example, so many recipes call for eggs. So tell us some of those rich, classic, and even some contemporary metaphors that are associated with eggs.
Eggs are always a part of a recipe that makes us think of a new way of doing things, a new life. That's a very powerful metaphor. Also, we crack them together. So again, this is a very tangible thing. We're like opening up to a new way.
So tell us about some other ingredients that have strong metaphorical associations and that you like to address when people bring their full selves to the table.
I would say a lot of it is the processes more than the actual food, because you could chop a lot of different foods and you can stuff a lot of different foods and scoop out a lot of different foods. But one thing I always love to do is something that has hits. A lot of people can relate to the idea of having a pit in their stomach. And that's a very strong metaphor when we're trying to get rid of a bad feeling, a bad memory, maybe even a secret.
That's great. What I really love about those examples is they're so relevant and real for kids. Kids could be talking about scooping something out and stuffing something. And of course, this whole idea of a pit, something that's tying up your stomach in knots and you feel that pit. So those are beautiful kid references. Love that. So we're eager to do the first demo. This is great. You've gotten us excited about the benefits of food experiences. So let's give teachers and parents and the children in their lives a simple, colorful recipe that can get them started. And I love this name, Razzmatazz Yogurt Crunch. Razzmatazz like the Crayola color.
We always name our recipes, and today, Razzmatazz Yogurt Berry Crunch. The message right there is to sort of find what makes you special. What we really want to focus on in this recipe is decreasing anxiety and finding your inner razzmatazz. So I've done a lot of the work, but I'm going to take you through the steps. We have here, and you'll obviously have the recipe, we have 3 cups of low-fat yogurt. And we're just going to put that in the bowl of our mixer. And I should mention, we always wash our hands first. Not only is it healthy and necessary, it's a great first metaphor for starting something fresh. The second thing we always do is gather our ingredients. Think about your inner ingredients. What are you bringing to the table today? It could be, what kind of mood are you in? Are you tired? Are you excited? Did something happen and you're frustrated and you're distracted? Or are you being present? Some people are very hopeful. Some people are a little skeptical, and that's okay. Touching in with where you are is the very beginning. So we have our yogurt in the bowl. This recipe describes the next ingredient as a surprise ingredient. And I kind of love that for a metaphor. The surprise ingredient here is instant, fat-free, sugar-free vanilla pudding. And I'm going to put it in. I want you to think about these 2 ingredients together. So the yogurt could be something to represent that things are going well. Yogurt's smooth, it's cool. So if that's where you are, think about that for a minute. If things are not going that well, I like to think of the yogurt as perhaps an old habit that isn't working well, that took a long time to happen, that's in your life, and it's kind of stuck. And I say that because yogurt takes a long time to become yogurt. And then the surprise ingredient of the pudding is going to thicken up whichever one you're at. So if things are good, that gelatin is going to keep them good. And if things are not so good, that gelatin's going to firm up your resolve to say, you know what, I think maybe I need to make a change. So now I'm going to do something funny with you. I'm not going to torture you with all the noise that this is going to take, because it does take about 2 minutes to stir this together. But I am going to ask you to listen to it for a few seconds. Why? Well, some of us have a lot of noise in our head, and that's our next metaphor in this recipe. What we're going to learn to do is when it's on, turn it off. So stay with me for a minute. Listen to the noise, acknowledge the noise, and then we're going to turn it off. So later on, as I said, if you feel like you have one of those kids who's, worry about everything, remind them of this visual, remind them of the KitchenAid and how you can turn it off. The next thing we're going to do is what I promised you. We're going to have a mindful moment with these beautiful berries, I hope you can see. And we have strawberries, raspberries, and blueberries. You can really customize this to be all about you. So I chopped up a little cantaloupe and grapes just for color. We've got the yogurt, which is sort of our base and where we're starting and who we are, but it's kind of neutral. The berries are going to represent some individual pieces of you. They're small, they're colorful. Maybe you haven't really thought about what makes you you. They could be your interests. They could be your personality characteristics. If you like, because not everyone's comfortable sharing that, they could just be people in your life that make your life better. But we want to stare at them for a mindful moment. And then we want to say 1 or 2 things out loud as we put the berries in. If you're an adult working with a child, model it for them. Talk about 3 positives in your life. And then we're going to add them. And we'll add our other individual pieces. And now we get to something very fun. We get to the crunch in our razzmatazz yogurt berry crunch. So what is crunch? By now, I bet you're starting to think even on your own about what the various metaphors could be. There are some expressions that we have, crunch time or crunch the numbers. For me, I think this represents real goals or dreams that we can go after. I love the idea of asking kids to check in with a short-term goal and a long-term goal. Maybe there's a payoff if I do my homework right after school. And a long-term goal would be, I'm going to try out for the debate team. Sometimes when you get to crunch, kids have sort of secret goals and dreams they haven't really been willing to talk about. So again, if you're an adult and you model, I've always wanted to try. What about you? So that's our crunch. We're putting that in. And we're mixing this all up together. And what you're thinking about is 3 new ideas at this point. 1, are things going well, or are there some things that have been cemented that I would really maybe think about changing? Who am I? What are some of the things that make me me in a positive way? And what are some dreams and goals I can go after? And then, easy enough, we're just going to pour this into a pie, or you could do individual serving dishes, so each person had their own. And then this is going to chill in the fridge for 2 hours. I've already done it, so I'm going to put this one in. Sometimes when we let something chill, it comes together. Now we're going to top it. So we're going to mash this up. And as we do that, and soften it. It's going to be one of our toppings. We're also going to add some sugar, a tablespoon, sweetness, and we're going to add some lemon juice, sour. I like to think about compromise because it's a little bit of both. Let's face it, we can't always have our way, but we also don't want to be one of those kids that people walk all over. Do people hear you, or do you need to sweeten it? Or, could you be too much of a pleaser? Maybe you need to get a little stand up for yourself. And we're just going to give it this final razzmatazzy look. But the real razzmatazz is going to come with whipped cream. The metaphor is it's light and fluffy. And hopefully, if you've spent some time, more than we did in this short snippet, you do feel a little lighter and fluffier. We've shaken things up, right? The way we think. And for this recipe, let's go through everything we did and give a squirt to cement it. So we had yogurt, we had pudding, we had crunch, we had blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, some extra pieces. We had sugar, we had lemon juice and topping. And there you have it. We had mindfulness, we pulled out the metaphors, and I think everyone would agree this is mastery.
Oh, Deborah, I love that. And what's really special is how many steps in that recipe kids can do, from rinsing the berries to spooning layers into, even if they make their own individual bowl or cup. And in our next demo, this is relating to the holiday season baking. And I love the way the kindness mini cakes really sums up two key messages: be original and self-expression. And when we say be original, this recipe can be customized. Use different ingredients based on your tastes and what you have on hand, from soft bananas to applesauce or shredded carrots. And you can also customize the baking pans, from tiny cupcakes to mini loaves. Every family member can decorate with their own unique message and a self-expression flair. So let's dive into your second demo, the kindness mini cakes.
What I really love about mini cakes, it's nice to think about doing one kind act, but mini cakes makes me think that we can help our kids and even ourselves do a bunch of nice little things all throughout the day. I also think a little treat is good for mental health. So now we're going to start, and again, we've washed our hands as we always do to be fresh, and we've gathered our ingredients. We've preheated the oven. And I love that metaphor because heat is a catalyst for change, right? And that's what we're all about. Here, we're going to change the substance, the batter, which is kind of loose, into something absolutely delicious and edible and substantial. I actually have written something down, the stages of change. There are 5 stages. The initial one is pre-contemplation, meaning you're not even really thinking about wanting to change anything. It's just back somewhere in your head. I won't go through all of them, but it's very visual. And since we're doing a tangible therapy, kids kind of like to look at it and go, oh, well, that thing I wanted to change? Well, I'm here, I'm thinking about it. Or, I made it happen. Now I just have to keep doing it, so I'm in maintenance. So I really like stages of change, and you can create this for your kids to sort of check in to where they are. So let's get started with our cakes. The first thing we're going to do, I have some softened butter. The holidays are a tough time, right? People use the expression, have to get through the holidays. What's up with that? So maybe if we just take everything down, we're not melting, but we could, and take something that's hard and soften it. This is the sugar. It's going in, and we have to make sure that it's smooth into the butter, right? We don't want any pieces or granules. We want a smooth, sweet substance. I would ask kids to think about other holidays or what they would hope a holiday would be like, what they're looking forward to in the holiday, what are their favorite parts, and keep that sort of fresh in their minds as they think about softening and sweetening. Now, we've talked about the eggs. One of my favorite parts, kids love to crack eggs. What I would suggest, have extras on hand because absolutely they're going to miss the bowl. They're going to get some shells in. That's okay. With kids, you probably want to crack into a separate bowl. And by all means, do not make them feel bad. Make it fun. I'm going to quickly crack these in, and we're going to think about new life and changing some behaviors or habits or communication styles that are not working for us. And this would be a good time to stop and ask kids to talk a little bit. The holidays are all about those generational connections. They get mixed together too. So now we have cake flour. So when I work with flour, flour's like what makes bread. Flour is our humanity, the things that bind us all together, the things we were born with that keep us all the same. We're going to do a lot of individualizing in this recipe. But this is the one thing we all share. Maybe it's a good time to stop and ask the kids, what do you think all of us share in life? Is it wanting to be happy? Is it wanting love? Is it, what is the expression? What makes happiness? Something to do, someone to love, something to hope for. Sometimes kids have to let go of things. And I think a great visual for letting go is to put some flour on your hands. They love this. On your hands and just go, that's what I'm going to do with the thing I've been worried about. That's what I'm going to do with stress about a test. Okay, it's just a very great visual and it's fun. So in goes the flour. Stir that up just a little less. I wanted to mention that in this recipe, I did it in advance. There was baking powder and salt. I call those the helpers. They help everything rise, right? So now I'd like to ask you to do an exercise for rising. Stand up, lift up your arms, and rise. See how long you can stand up. Visually, tangibly, concretely, think of rising up, just like your batter is going to rise up. So now that's in, and we have to put in our vanilla. I love vanilla when it's in a recipe. Don't even think about tasting it because it tastes sour, but it's really flavorful in the recipe. This would be our first chance to start thinking about our flavors, our individual flavors that are coming. And when I say flavors, what makes you you? Start thinking about the things that are individual to you, such as you are creative, you're a good friend, you're respectful, you're kind. But it could also be interests. You love music, you're good at sport. We want to really focus with kindness mini cakes on taking our base and then accepting and loving all our individual characteristics. Now, in this recipe, it calls for putting the sprinkles in the batter. I'm going to do that because we want color, we want happiness. Is there anything as happy as sprinkles? Maybe some of my other toppings, but sprinkles are just joyful. I'm just going to eyeball it. Sprinkling is a wonderful metaphor for something you already do or something you can intend to do. Sprinkling can be thanks, it can be compliments, it can be helpful gestures. By all means, it can be kindness. We're all mixed up. I have a little bit already done. Here's how it looks, the batter. So now we're just putting about 2/3 of a cup in each. Finish this up. And we'll pop that in the oven. This is going in at 325 because it's a dark pan. Light pans would be 350. And then as soon as they come out, we'll talk about our toppings. Okay, well, I've heard our oven timer go off, so I think that our kindness mini cakes are ready. It took about 15 minutes, but check these, they cook rather quickly. And they just look beautiful. And now the fun can begin. This really should cool. It says about 10 minutes in the pan, but I'm going to show you myself what we do after they come out. So I've made 2 different color frostings here. I did store-bought this time, just white frosting with some gel food coloring. Just stir it in and feel free to top it. That's one option. There's a little bit of equal opportunity red. And of course, depending on how much you like sprinkles, when you put frosting on, you could always add a little more. But what I really love to do is now we have all of these, and we could have had a lot more. We have marshmallows, candy corn, because it's been Halloween, Reese's, and some gumdrops. I like to make a little X and take something and put it in. Because the truth is, with minis, you really don't want to fill them with too much candy. So I think the message at the end of the day is, yes, we all celebrate holidays in an individual way, but we're all individuals even before that, right? You are who you are in March, as well as in November and December. And if you can get a little bit of honest assessment of who you are, what you like about yourself, and what you feel you may want to work on. We don't say what's wrong with you, nothing wrong. Just what you feel like you'd like to make a change with. Then you've had a successful cooking therapy session.
So you have shared 2 wonderful recipes today with the Razzmatazz Yogurt Crunch and the Kindness Mini Cakes. A fun way for families to celebrate this cooking experience is to create a colorful recipe sheet or even a recipe book that's filled with ideas. And kids are great at drawing out with ingredients, so instead of writing 3 eggs, they can draw 3 eggs. Really wonderful ways to have a family tradition of this homemade illustrated recipe book with their sketches. So it would be great if you can share that with us.
Kids absolutely love to connect to different feelings and emotions and tasks with artwork. I wanted to give you some ideas for what you could do with crayons and Crayola products and what we've done today. I took the recipe that we did first, which was Razzmatazz Yogurt Berry Crunch, and I made some pictures of the ingredients. Here's the yogurt, which might remind them of old habits. Or maybe they chose things are smooth and cool. The next thing were the berries, which were going to equal positive people or interests or personality traits. Here's the crunch. Crunch equals hopes and dreams. I thought the next thing was to actually draw a picture of the kindness mini cakes. But in each of the little muffin tins, I put something that could involve kindness. So first I put some people that you want to be kind to, like mom, dad, neighbor. But then also I put in ways to be kind, giving thanks, compliments, and then just my family faves. At the holidays, everybody has, I even have a file on my computer for my kids that are all the special recipes they remember through the years. So they could start that beginning with this holiday.
Well, Deborah and viewers are busy working on their projects and their recipe sketches. I want to share a special message with teachers and parents. You can keep the learning fun and colorful by signing up to receive the Crayola Education free monthly newsletters. You'll get updates about all of our programs delivered right to your email box. After the session, you're going to have plenty of time to finish your razzmatazz berry yogurts and the kindness mini cakes. We'd love for you to share photos of what you've cooked. And if you made a hand-drawn recipe, love to see that too. Sharing those in the comment section of this video. We look forward to seeing what you've made. Deborah, this session has been a wonderful way to explore food and cooking with mindfulness and creativity. This idea of weaving family traditions and memories into a cooking experience are wonderful. What closing remarks or last bits of advice would you like to share with our participants?
This is a therapy you can do right in your own home. You can't make a mistake. It's actually fun. It's being together. It's colorful. It's enjoyable. It's everything we really do want the holidays to be.
We want to thank Deborah Bourne for inspiring us today. To keep up with Deborah's work and more of these great cooking ideas, visit her website and follow her on social media. Special thanks for our participants today. Thank you for joining us. Stay well, stay strong, and take care of yourself creatively, especially during the holiday season.
Thank you so much for allowing me to come into your kitchen. I'll leave you with this thought. You really can cook yourself happy. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.